Hello. So when we pay for goods and services that are not charged in our local currency, so say for example we're travelling or we're buying stuff off the internet that's denominated in another currency, it all seems pretty straightforward and seamless really. You can pay on credit cards and debit cards. When you're abroad you can use ATMs to withdraw foreign currency. But what cost are we actually paying for all that convenience? So what are the charges and the fees and the commissions that are taking place in the background that we don't necessarily see up front? My name is John. Now, if you've seen our content before, then thank you for coming back. If you're new, then you're very welcome. Now, our aim here on this channel is to give independent, impartial advice about the places that we visit, how we get there, and what we do when we're there. But we also think value is really important. So what I want to do at the end of this video is have armed you with the information that you need to make informed decisions about foreign exchange. We're going to cover credit and debit card spending, we're going to cover prepaid or currency cards, and we're going to cover cash. We're going to talk about the potential fees and commissions that you can pay with each method. And what we're going to do is going to try and get you the best value you can so that your foreign spending is as close to the wholesale or the interbank rate as we can get it. And what is the best way of spending in a foreign currency? Well, potentially spending on a credit card, which you pay off every month, can be the simplest, most convenient and the best value way of paying, provided that you're using the right credit card. And I will explain what is the right credit card in just a moment. So let's talk briefly about how credit cards work when it comes to foreign transactions. Now, the biggest players in the credit card market by quite a long way are MasterCard and Visa. Both of these organisations publish their exchange rates on a website which I will link to in the description of the video. Now, these allow you to look at what historical and current day exchange rates are. Now, if you go on either of these websites, you will notice that there is a box in the conversion formula to put in a percentage, which is what your credit card may charge you for foreign transaction fees. Now, what does that mean? Okay. So in the terms and conditions for each credit card, you will find somewhere hidden a statement of the percentage that the card issuer will charge you as a percentage for foreign transaction exchange. Now, that percentage can vary somewhere between 0% in some cases and typically between 2 and 3% for most cards. What does that mean and how does it apply? Well, it's not specified as a separate fee on a foreign transaction on your credit card statement. The way it works is that the credit card issuer will load the exchange rate with that percentage fee based on the base fee that either MasterCard or Visa are charging them. And that's why on the box, the calculator box for MasterCard and Visa, there is a box for you to put the percentage that applies to your credit card in order to work out how much a foreign transaction is actually going to cost you. Only you really know whether your current credit card offers you value for money when you look at your foreign exchange fee versus the convenience of using your main or your home credit card when you spend money abroad. So it may be that your main credit card also comes with other perks. So it may come with cashback or air miles or hotel points or something which is attractive, and you may take a view that your foreign exchange fee is value for money in terms of earning those sort of perks when you're abroad. But in the event that you do the maths and you decide that it is potentially worth the hassle of having a second credit card to use when you're abroad, how do you find a suitable candidate? Well, my personal go-to place is moneysavingexpert.com. So I'm based in the UK. Martin Lewis's website I find to be a really good resource for an awful lot of things, but the travel section is particularly good and it has loads of tips and tricks to help you find good value when you're traveling, and that includes a list of credit cards which offer 0 foreign exchange fees. I think the one thing to bear in mind is that the chances are that if you choose a card that has 0 foreign transaction fees, then there are probably won't be other perks, because that is the perk that you are getting with that particular card. Now, not based in the UK, well, my Google research in the US and Germany, for example, found sites where credit cards with zero fees were listed. I'm not recommending these sites. I will link them in the description, but it's clear that these cards are available in countries other than the UK. One of the questions that's quite often asked is, at what point does the foreign exchange rate get locked in if I pay for items on a credit card? Well, the answer is, in this day and age, typically it's the moment that the transaction is approved. So you put your PIN in, press the green button, or you make the contactless payment, or you pay for something online. The moment you get that transaction approved statement on the credit card terminal or online, that is when the exchange rate will typically be locked. Now, you might find if you have online access to your state credit card statements that it doesn't appear in the main body of your statement immediately. But if you look, there will typically be a section called pending transactions. If you go into that, you will find that what you would normally see is you will see the name of the merchant where you've made the purchase, and then an amount which has been already converted into your home currency. Now, it won't actually specify at this point what the exchange rate is, but you can work that out for yourself by knowing the amount you spent in foreign currency versus the amount they've converted it to. And then typically a couple of days later, it drops out of your pending transactions into the main credit card statement, and it will then specify the foreign exchange rate, which you know anyway, having calculated it yourself. Okay, so to summarise with credit cards then, my advice to anybody who travels on a regular basis and spends a significant amount of money in something other than their home currency should consider going through the process of applying for a credit card which comes with 0% transaction fees. Right, so what about debit cards? Now, debit cards are similar to the credit cards in as much as they're typically issued by Visa or MasterCard. So the exchange rate, the base exchange rate, will be the one that's listed on the Visa or the MasterCard website. However, debit cards quite often come with additional fees which are levied by your bank. And it will sometimes be in the form of an additional percentage, a little bit like you find with a credit card. But some banks also levy a per transaction fee, which is almost like a standing charge for each transaction. Now, there are so many different bank accounts that it's very difficult to give advice. The best thing to do is to look at your own bank account, see what fees that comes with. There are some bank accounts that again are specially designed for people who spend a lot of money abroad, and they will come with low or no fees. Again, Martin Lewis's website, moneysavingexpert.com, is an excellent resource, and it names bank accounts that have debit cards with very low fees, and it also calls out the bank accounts, and some of them with quite major banks, that have actually very high fees.
So prepaid or currency cards are not linked directly to your bank account. Instead, money must be preloaded onto the card from your home currency, and you then have a choice as to when and if you choose to convert it into a foreign currency and store it on the card in a foreign currency. It is worth noting that not all currencies are available on every card, so make sure that the card that you choose allows you to hold the currency for the destination that you're travelling to. Okay, so why might you choose to use a prepaid or a currency card over, say, a debit or a credit card? Well, to start with, you can choose to time the currency conversion to suit you, whereas with a credit or a debit card, typically the conversion takes place when you make the purchase. You don't need a credit check. Now, in some cases, the fees and commissions can mean that the overall exchange rate is better with a prepaid card than with a credit or a debit card, but as we will talk about in a second, you do need to do your research on that one. They're relatively quick and easy to set up, and some offer accounts which will also allow you to transfer money into other bank accounts at a relatively low fee. So why might you need to think carefully about why prepaid cards would be the right thing for you? They're more hassle than credit or debit cards potentially, because they need topping up and you need to make sure you've got credit available. The fee structure can be quite daunting, and I would suggest you do need to make sure that you think carefully about what you're going to use the card for and make sure that the fees are not prohibitive for that particular use. Some cards do charge monthly fees after a period of time if the card is inactive, so in other words they start taking money from the balance if you don't use it. Loading cards on some prepaid accounts by some methods can incur a fee. And finally, if you try and load your card with a credit card, in some cases it can be treated as a cash advance by your credit card, and that means that potentially you start paying interest from the day that you actually take the money.
There are dozens of prepaid and currency cards on the market. I've chosen to do a snapshot comparison of 3 of them because they were 3 of the best reviewed. That's the currency card, the Revolt card and the Wise card. Now, Wise charges a 0.4% fee, typically for currency conversion. Revolt charges 1% at weekends, but nothing during the week. And the currency card claims that it doesn't charge a fee at all, and yet actually its rate appeared to be very slightly worse than either of the other 2. So based on the comparison, and bear in mind this is a single day at a weekend and a single day during the week, based on the comparison, Wise came out slightly better during the weekend, whereas Revolt came out slightly better during the week. If you then converted that back using the historical MasterCard and Visa rates, MasterCard and Visa were actually slightly worse than Wise at the weekend, but they were the best during the week. Now, I think it's worth bearing in mind a couple of things. If you are thinking of seriously using a prepaid card for your holiday spending, then just bear in mind that you have to preload it. It's not like a credit card where you can just spend on demand. And in order to take advantage of the sort of rates that we've seen here, you do need to convert the currency from your home currency into your destination currency in advance. The card will do the conversion on the fly for you, but sometimes the fees associated with that are different. So, as you'll see from the text on the right of the screen, withdrawing cash from an ATM can come associated with it up to 4 different fees, but it can also be potentially the cheapest way of obtaining cash. So I'm going to talk about DCC at the end of the video, but those first 3 fees can have quite a significant impact on the charges that you pay to withdraw cash from an ATM. As you'll see from this worked example, if you want to withdraw a relatively small amount like €50, then those 3 fees can add up, and the difference between withdrawing cash at the interbank rate, which remember is the best rate that we're aiming for, and adding those fees on, in this particular instance, was between 14 and 15%, which is clearly quite significant. Now that does go down if you withdraw larger amounts because, of course, some of those fees are per transaction rather than a percentage. So how do we minimise or even eradicate those fees? Well, the right prepaid card can reduce some of the fees. In some countries there are ATMs with very low or even 0 transaction fees. Now I've not been able to find a single resource that helps you to find those. The options that I personally have used in the past are a good old-fashioned Google search. I've used the facility on wise.com, which does help in some countries to identify low or 0 cost ATMs, or you can use trial and error if you have the time to do it. So if you want to take the cash with you, then the online currency exchange services can represent good value. The link in the description will take you to a comparison tool for the UK, which is really helpful. I think the key thing to remember here is that pre-ordering will get you potentially competitive rates. As a walk-in customer, as we will see in just a second, the rates are not nearly as competitive. So using physical currency exchange services at places like airports and stations where you just walk up and don't pre-order can be really convenient, but I think you pay quite a high price for that convenience very often. In this example here, the difference between the interbank rate and what I was offered was over 25%, which is quite a big fee to pay. Okay, so the Western Union is a money transfer service, and this option is a little bit left field, but it has worked for me in the past when I've been sending money to my children when they've been abroad on holiday and so on. Now, I've never tried it when I've been physically abroad myself, but I can't see any reason why it wouldn't work. The rates can be quite competitive. I would be interested if you've got examples of this working or indeed not working. Please feel free to post them in the comments. So here's a summary of the cost of buying €50 in British pounds, all taken on the same day. It's worth noting that the physical versions of the Wise, the Revolut and the currency cards all potentially offer good value as well, because they offer 0 ATM fees if you withdraw up to your limits. Okay, so I'm going to talk about something called dynamic currency conversion, or DCC. Now this is a cleverly named trick which is applied at ATM and credit card terminals by the merchant who owns the terminal. And what happens is you are offered the option to either pay in the local currency, or the machine will do the conversion for you and charge you in your home currency. Now the right answer here is always to pay in the local currency. So if you're in Spain, pay in euros. And the reason for this is because the conversion rate that the merchant will be offering you will almost always be way worse than what your credit card or your debit card provider or your prepaid card provider is likely to be charging you. Now, if you want to prove this, what I would encourage you to do is next time you're abroad and you get this very kind offer, is make a note of how much the terminal is telling you you would pay if you paid in your home currency. Choose to pay in the local currency, and then when you get home, compare what the two rates are. And even if you have a credit or a debit card which charges you the 3% transaction fee, I would be very, very surprised if you do not find that even with that 3% fee added, that you have got a better deal than paying in your home currency using the terminal. Okay, so that is pretty much it. I hope you have more knowledge now to allow you to strike the right balance for you between convenience and keeping more money in your own pocket. Okay, so what would be my top takeaways from this video? Well, the first thing would be to consider getting yourself a credit card that doesn't load foreign exchange fees. If you're getting cash out abroad from an ATM, then be very cautious of the fees that your own debit card may charge. Sometimes a physical prepaid card within the limits of the plan that you choose may well offer you great value. Definitely avoid dynamic currency conversion or DCC when the merchant offers to allow you to pay in your own currency. That's it. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Don't forget that we also have a video on our channel which explains how foreign exchange works. You might find that useful, and we are adding other videos all the time. If you're watching this because you're planning a trip, then have a fantastic time, keep safe, and I hope we'll see you again soon. Thanks and bye-bye.